This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Efrem Graham. We've got a lot to cover on this busy Tuesday. Let's begin in the Middle East as Israel remembers the deadly Hamas sneak attacks from a year ago. And Hezbollah issues a new warning to Israel. It plans to drive still more Israelis out of their homes, while Israel keeps up its own attacks against Hezbollah in Lebanon. CBN's Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl brings us the story. She's reporting from Jerusalem.
Israel's official commemoration took place in Ofakim, hard hit on October 7th. Israelis lit a flame in front of the burned-out cars from the massacre and played their national anthem, Hatikva, which means the hope.
Until my last day, I will be haunted by the smell of burnt bodies and the sight of pools of blood, alongside family photos and children's books.
As long as the enemy threatens our existence and the peace of our country, we will continue to fight.
Earlier, families of hostages, those killed on October 7th, and soldiers who died fighting Hamas, held a ceremony in Tel Aviv with a small audience due to the security situation. Shortly before the ceremony, sirens blared as Yemen fired a surface-to-surface missile and drones toward Tel Aviv. They were intercepted in the skies over the city. Hezbollah also launched around 190 missiles and rockets at Israel on Monday, as Hezbollah's acting leader says more Israelis will be displaced as the Iranian proxy expands its rocket fire deeper into Israel. This, as Israeli jets took the offensive from Beirut to Baalbek, hitting 120 terror targets in just 1 hour. Around the world, commemorations and protests marked the October 7th anniversary. In Washington, President Joe Biden and the First Lady lit a candle as Rabbi Aaron Alexander prayed to God for the souls of the lost.
May you shelter them in the shadow of your wings forever, and may their souls be bound up in the bond of everlasting life.
In Washington, D.C., a crowd rallied on the National Mall to show their support for the Jewish state. Meanwhile, in New York, pro-Palestinian demonstrators took to the streets, as did many in the Middle East. Back in Israel, 2 visiting U.S. senators told Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that the Jewish nation still has America's full backing. Republican Lindsey Graham took a swipe at France, which is saying all nations should consider embargoing weapons to Israel.
You should be doubling down on helping Israel, because the people that want to destroy Israel also want to destroy the French people. And they would kill all of us if they could. If Iran ever got a nuclear weapon, they would use it.
I like the Holocaust. We fight back. And we're fighting like lions with the support of the American government, the American people.
Democrat Richard Blumenthal spoke of October 7th.
It was an absolutely abhorrent, inhumane attack on the Jewish people. And we're here to say we have Israel's back. And Israel has a right to defend itself.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
And our Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell joins us once again in Virginia Beach. So good to have you in the studio. So let's begin with this. Hezbollah's acting leader says they're going to push more Israelis out of their homes. How do you think Israel will respond?
Well, I think Israel is going to respond like it has already since the beginning of the war. Continue to knock out as much as they can Hezbollah terrorist infrastructure, the rocket launchers, and it really tells you what happened on October 8th. Hezbollah began firing rockets. They've fired over 12,000 rockets in the past year, and they've driven at least more than 60,000 Israelis out of their homes. They want to do it more. That ultimate goal is to destroy the Jewish state. Now, some people have asked, and they asked this of Hamas after October 7th, there was actually a few months, even though Israel had gone in on the ground, they were continuing able to fire rockets. Many of these rockets are pre-positioned. Sometimes they're on timers, and that's why even today they fired about 100 rockets as far south as Haifa.
How deep into Israel have the rockets gone?
Well, they've gone into central Israel, and there was a time when there was sort of this unofficial rules of the engagement where Hezbollah would fire rockets into northern Israel, maybe as far as the Sea of Galilee. but not further than that. But those rules are over now that the Hezbollah leadership has been decimated. And so the acting leader right now is continuing to do what Hezbollah has aimed to do, which is destroy the Jewish state and liberate Jerusalem. But their capacity is being degraded almost daily.
Now, Yemen also launched more missiles at Israel. Is there a danger that some of these attacks will eventually get through Israel's defenses and cause serious damage?
Well, they have it. Well, they have once. In June 10th, they fired a drone that got through the ability to intercept by Israel, killed 1, wounded 10 inside Tel Aviv. But so far, many of these drones, ballistic missiles that Yemen has fired have been intercepted. But it really tells you what Yemen is able to do for almost a year is to disrupt global shipping in the Red Sea. And even though the Israel has hit 2 major ports in Yemen, and the U.S. and other allies have actually hit into Yemen. Still, they have a capacity to fire rockets all the way to Israel.
How important is it for Israel to have support from the United States and other countries after the war following the October 7th attack?
Well, you saw Senators Lindsey Graham and Blumenthal there. It's huge. They need the United States. They need that kind of support. That's why this election is so invaluable for Israelis and why they see it really a pivotal time for Israel and the Middle East. So they need that support, especially when you have nations like France withdrawing aid from Israel during its time, to literally fighting for their survival. They're fighting a 7-front war right now. Hamas may be degraded substantially, and there'll be some sort of a guerrilla war there, but still Israel's fighting for its survival. And right now we're in this time period where we're waiting for Israel to see what it's going to do for Iran's attack last Tuesday night. I, like many millions of Israelis, was in a bomb shelter, and they cannot do that for an indefinite period of time.
Does the Israeli government feel like it can count on consistent international support?
I think it's probably depending on inconsistent international support. You see what the UK has promised. They may stop weapons. France has already said that. So I think they need to know that they need to depend on themselves. And after October 7th, they realize that they need to have their own manufacturing of their weapon systems, and they can't depend even on the United States, which has proven in the last year to be sometimes consistent, sometimes dependable, and then sometimes not dependable. So they really have to find their own way to provide all the munitions, all the armaments they need for their own survival.
It seems like Israel has attacks coming at all sides. How sustainable can these wars be?
Well, it's just so hard for them. I mean, they find it not only on a military front, but on the diplomatic front and the public relations front. You saw in Julie's report all these demonstrations around the world. Their attempt to demonize Israel and its right to exist.
What do we have this evening on Jerusalem Dateline? Well,
we were in Kfar Aza, one of the kibbutzim that was most destroyed on October 7th. We were there. We had a program last Friday. We have a program today. We're also not only looking back to October 7th, but we're looking to see what's going to be ahead. What's going to happen to Gaza? Who's going to control it? What kind of security arrangements are going to be there? So that was a very, we thought, important show to tell people that what's the way forward for Israel during these tumultuous days.
An important show indeed. Our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell, thank you so much for being here. Good to have you in studio. Naturally, we continue to pray for you and the entire team there in Israel. I want to let you know at home that you can catch the latest edition of Jerusalem Dateline this evening on the CBN News Channel. It begins at 8 Eastern. You can also watch it on the CBN News app, or you can simply tune in to YouTube. Coming up, a major evacuation is underway in Florida as the dangerous Hurricane Milton approaches its Gulf Coast as a Category 4 storm. Forecasters calling it an extremely serious threat. We're going to bring you the story when we come back. Hurricane Milton is approaching the Gulf Coast of Florida as a Category 4 hurricane, posing an historic threat as it's expected to make landfall Wednesday evening. Tampa could take a direct hit for the first time in decades. Hundreds of thousands have been ordered to evacuate, as up to 15 feet of storm surge is possible, double that of Helene. Wendy Griffith is on the story.
The mass exodus from Florida's Gulf Coast is underway, with Hurricane Milton exploding into a once-in-a-lifetime storm less than 2 weeks after Hurricane Helene hit the state.
This is the oddest weather predicament that there has ever been, so I can't believe that there's already another one.
Milton strengthened from a Category 1 storm to a Category 5 in just a few hours Monday.
It has dropped 50 millibars in 10 hours. I apologize. This is just horrific.
The storm weakened overnight and is forecast to make landfall as a still dangerous Category 3 sometime Wednesday night or early Thursday near Tampa Bay. 15 inches of rain is possible.
This is the storm of the century, and we need to be preparing for this storm.
Officials in Tampa warning residents to not let their guard down and to take evacuation orders seriously, as life-threatening storm surge of 10 to 15 feet is expected.
This is going to be an event like none other. Helene was mostly a water event for us. This is going to be wind, water, storm surge, rain, you name it. It's going to bring everything towards our community.
Airports in Tampa and Orlando shutting down operations Tuesday. Schools in at least 20 counties will close starting Tuesday as well. In Central Florida, people rush to prepare, filling up sandbags and stocking up on supplies.
Just in terms of preparation, you just got to do what you can early, and it is what it is, right?
And at least 10 counties are under evacuation orders. Some gas stations running dry, but the governor insists there is enough supply.
We can't control how strong or how weak it gets. The only thing that you can affect is what you do and the decisions you make to protect yourself and your families.
Another urgent concern is the debris from Hurricane Helene, still piled up in coastal communities. Governor DeSantis ordering landfills to be open around the clock to help speed cleanup. FEMA, which has come under fire for slow reaction to Hurricane Helene, says 20 million meals and 40 million liters of water are ready to send out, with thousands of workers from as far as California standing by to help restore power. Wendy Griffith, CBN News.
As communities across the Southeast are working to recover from Hurricane Helene, churches and faith-based groups are filling other needs beyond food and water, including helping to restore lives by providing hope. CBN's Brody Carter brings us the story he's reporting from Western North Carolina.
Shocking scenes left behind from Hurricane Helene. This is just a glimpse of what the destruction looks like. That damage spanning more than 400 square miles throughout several states. We're currently in Swannanoa, North Carolina. It's just outside of Asheville. And despite all of this damage, neighbors, volunteers from states over, including the faith community, they're coming together to help those desperate in need while salvaging what's left.
Oh, yeah, we're not going anywhere. Yeah. It's Swannanoa.
With just over 5,000 people, this small mountain town makes the list of those worst affected by Helene.
That river has usually been just a nice little river. It's beautiful. And it turned into a massive, it was some 27, 30 feet above flood stage, places where no one had ever seen it.
The view of the disaster zone is jarring, with utility line poles snapped in half, roads and railroads washed out, and only concrete slabs where homes once stood.
Found out their house was gone. They don't even know where it is. It literally rushed down the river.
Senior Pastor Jeff Dowdy of First Baptist Church of Swannanoa says the town's river turned into a tour de force, rising just yards away from the church building.
We were able to make it through as a church, so we feel like that God has spared us to be able to be a beacon of hope in this community.
Just to the north, another grassroots effort has turned into a massive distribution center in Asheville.
So we've been trying to keep track with the needs so great, our inventory, we're just sending it.
Michelle Coleman, founder of the Asheville Dream Center, is set up outside Revel Church, providing water, food, and supplies for more than 40 nonprofits and churches.
Will you start bringing some fruit?
My best
friend told me about this place this morning.
Yeah.
I mean, it's allowed me to get toilet paper, which I don't have any.
What began with giving a single case of water quickly turned the church into one of the town's main distribution centers for locals.
It's mostly fresh fruits. I feel like we've been only getting canned stuff, and it's getting kind of old.
It's allowing them to reach even the most remote communities, many of which have been cut off by the storm's aftermath. So many donations have come in that they're sending supplies back out to newly created extension sites in other towns.
So right now, I mean, we're getting semi-trucks in here, we're loading it, and we have, now I can't say this, over 60 nonprofits, churches, businesses, recovery centers, and neighborhoods that we are getting this out to.
Michelle says they've heard there's government aid, although they haven't seen it here yet.
I don't know. I've heard they're here. I've heard they're here. None of us have seen them.
Refusing to wait, she's been able to create this constructive chaos through the work of many survivors joining in to bring hope to the hopeless.
There's a flood that's in our history in 1916. Grandparents of some of my members would talk about this, that the things that happened then, nobody had ever seen this. So to have it happen now, they'll be talking about the flood of 2024 for generations to come.
Helicopters have been flying overhead nonstop. They're delivering supplies to folks that are still trapped in the mountains. They're waiting for rescue teams to clear roads of trees and debris. In spite of all this unimaginable loss, survivors say that they're finding hope in their shared faith and resilience in one another. Brody Carter reporting in Western North Carolina, CBN News.
Still ahead, Election Day, 1 month from today, and the focus is on all the important swing states that could determine who's going to be the next president. We'll bring you a look at one of those key states, Wisconsin. That story's coming up after this. Since the end of the political conventions, Americans are hearing more about certain Rust and Sunbelt swing states that hold the keys to the White House. One of those is Wisconsin, which historically sees very close election results. CBN's Paul Petit visited there for a closer look at its likely impact in the presidential race.
While about 240 million people are eligible to vote in the presidential election, pollsters and campaigns are mainly focusing on voters in 7 states likely to determine the winner. That includes Wisconsin.
Razor thin.
That's how former Wisconsin House Speaker Mike Hipsch describes the likely margin of victory here in November.
In Wisconsin, it absolutely will be thin, mainly because we're always that tight. This is a very important election. They all are. But this is one that has, I think, for those who are enthusiastic, those who are excited, those who are concerned about this election, they're going to crawl over broken glass, as we say, to make sure that they go out and vote. The question will be, will there be enough of either the Democrats or the Republicans in Wisconsin to come out and vote? And that's something that we just never know.
According to our metric, which takes into account 4 election cycles worth of results, federal offices, statewide offices, Wisconsin is the most evenly divided state in the country.
Here's an example of that. Former President Trump won here in 2016. President Biden took the title in 2020. Going back to the year 2000, 3 presidential elections have been decided in Wisconsin by less than a single percentage point.
Wisconsin is a true swing state, and throughout the state, you'll see that even in legislative races and congressional races. And we're proud of that. We take pride in the fact that we like to get to know our candidates.
Wisconsin has been a swing state since the mid-20th century, according to experts, and the same holds true when it comes to state races. In fact, out of the last 6 governors dating back to 1983, 3 have been Republican and 3 have been Democrats.
Many pundits that say the swing state is Wisconsin.
Former Governor Scott McCallum says swing states are similar in that they include Democrat strongholds in urban areas surrounded by Republican-leaning rural areas. It's the metropolitan suburbs, however, that really makes the difference. Those rapidly growing populations include middle-class, family-oriented Hispanics and African Americans who have become disenfranchised with the Democratic establishment.
It's an interesting flip where Democrats used to be the party of the working people, is now the Republicans are a party of the working people. The big shots don't understand these aren't automatic Democrats. They're working. They're frustrated with what's going on. So it's going to be an interesting race.
In Wisconsin, Hipsch believes November's presidential election will basically boil down to who turns their true convictions into real votes.
Which one is going to have more more influence, which side is going to be more enthusiastic. And I really think it's going to be another one of those that's 20,000 votes or less out of 3.5 million cast. That's going to be tight.
In Wisconsin, Paul Petit, CBN News.
We'll be back with an encouraging word for your day ahead. Please stay with us. We're back now with your Tuesday Tweetable, and today I leave you with this thought to post, tag, tweet, and share with those in your circles of influence. They're lyrics from a song I keep hearing on repeat in my heart today. He's an on-time God. He loves the impossible. He loves doing miracles. He always shows up. Take comfort in this truth. He never gives up. You're never too far gone. He always shows up. Well, that will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News channel. You can find them there at any time as well as online. That address is cbnnews.com. Take a moment, let us know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. You can also reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'll see you back here same time tomorrow. Goodbye. God bless.